Chapter 18. Beeping. Harsh fluorescent lights. A voice too familiar. White noise. The world came back slowly, as if someone were peeling gauze from his senses. The first thing River noticed was the sterile light, too soft to be natural but too persistent to ignore. Then came the beeping, rhythmic and constant, like a metronome counting his borrowed time. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and plastic tubing. He was in a hospital. He tried to sit up, but his body had other plans. A low, dragging ache in his chest kept him tethered. He let out a breath or tried to. Even that hurt. "You're awake." The voice was low, familiar, a warm contrast to the cool room. River turned his head slowly toward the sound and blinked through the haze. It was Rowan, and attending from his floor, a smug, efficient, condescending genius with zero bedside manner. "Rowan?" The man by his bedside gave a tired half smile. "You look like hell." River huffed a weak laugh, which immediately triggered a wince. "You say that to all your patients?" "Just the ones who almost go ghost on me." Rowan leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. He was still in scrubs, ID badge slung around his neck, eyes sharp behind smudged glasses. "You're scared the hell out of a lot of people, River." The first face he saw wasn't Kate. River let his head fall back against the pillow. "How bad?" "You had a heart attack," Rowan said carefully. "You're lucky. You were stabilized quickly. Stent placed. No significant long-term damage as of now. But this was a warning shot." "You've been out for 2 days," Rowan said, arms crossed. "STEMI, emergency bypass." "Honestly, I didn't even know musicians had hearts." River gave a slow nod. Truth stung. After a moment, he looked at Rowan again. "You didn't have to come. You're not even on call." Rowan shrugged. Couldn't ignore the alert. "Not when I saw your name. A beat." River said quietly. "I still think about that day. The job interview at the clinic. The way the room went cold the second they Googled me. My past, the press, the whole velvet mask mess. Everyone just stared like I'd walked in dripping scandal." He paused. "Except you." Rowan's jaw tightened a little, but his voice was calm. "You were overqualified. And you cared. That's rare. You vouched for me," River continued, his voice thick. "Stuck your neck out when no one else would. I never said thank you. Not really." "You didn't need to," Rowan said simply. "You showed up. You did the work. That was the thank you." River stared at the ceiling, blinking hard. "I never asked." "Why did you?" Rowan stood, stretched, and looked down at him with a hint of a smile. "Because someone once vouched for me when they shouldn't have. And because I know what it's like to be judged for your worst day instead of your best work." River looked at him, then really looked. Not just as a colleague, but as someone who had quietly anchored him in a storm. Rowan gave a gentle tap to the foot of the bed. "Rest. Heal. Let people help you for once." Rowan paused at the door, then turned. "By the way, you flatlined for 8 seconds, so if you saw a light in a long tunnel or a childhood dog or whatever, now's the time to cash in on the drama." River gave him a weak smirk. "I just saw her. That was enough." Rowan smiled, and River, broken but breathing, waited for the only person who could fill that room with light. River blinked, four in his arm, machines humming beside him. "No visitors," Rowan added dryly. "Not unless you count a bartender who apparently saved your life." River looked at the corner of the room. Dana's coat was folded neatly on the chair. Kate's seat empty. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. A soft knock on the door was followed by the quiet creak of it. River turned his head slowly, expecting Kate, hoping for her, but instead saw a woman in teal scrubs stepping into the room with practiced grace. "Morning," she said, her voice even but not cold. "You must be River Hayes. Nice to formally meet you." He nodded, slowly pushing himself up a little in the hospital bed, his chest still heavy with soreness. "That obvious?" She smiled faintly, not quite amused, more like she'd been prepared. "I'm Dr. Jensen, cardiologist on duty. Rowan asked me to look in on you personally, said, and I quote, 'only the best for him.'" River chuckled softly, then winced. "Sounds like him." She moved to the side of the bed and began checking the monitors, her movements precise. "Let's take a listen and see how your heart's behaving after all the drama." As she placed the stethoscope against his chest, River watched her. She looked young, but steady, confident. She didn't glance at the monitors like she was searching for something wrong. She just knew what she was looking at, the way River once had. After a few quiet moments, she straightened, removing the stethoscope. "You're stable," she said, "but we need to start building a full profile. I need to ask about your medical history, childhood, family conditions, anything relevant we can access." River's face shifted slightly, a flicker of hesitation. I don't know much, he said finally. There are gaps. I was adopted. Some records are lost. Some never existed. She nodded without missing a beat. That's not unusual. We'll go with what we can get. What about in adulthood? Pre-existing conditions, surgeries, meds? He hesitated again, then shook his head. Nothing official. She didn't write anything down, not yet. Her voice softened just slightly. I need to ask you about your history with substance use. He looked away. Silence stretched between them, not cold, not tense, just suspended. I'm not judging, she said quietly. I'm not the press. I'm not your past. I'm your cardiologist. And to give you the best shot at staying alive, I need to understand what your body's been through. That's all. River finally looked at her, eyes tired but searching hers for any trace of condescension. She didn't flinch, didn't look at him like he was broken, just like he was someone she wanted to help. It was bad, he said finally, voice low. Years ago, I got clean. Relapsed once, alcohol. Been sober since. She nodded once. That's all I needed to know. River exhaled, some tension releasing from his shoulders. You're good at this. She smirked lightly. So are you. Rowan said you're a damn promising doctor. And I saw the notes on that PD's code last week. You saved that kid's life. He shouldn't have made it, but you pulled him through. River blinked. You read my chart? She shrugged. We like to know who we're treating, plus word gets around. There was warmth behind her professionalism, but no coddling, no flattery, just respect. She took one last glance at the monitor, then looked at him again. I'll be managing your follow-ups, meds, rehab, stress testing. I'll be in your life for a bit. River nodded slowly. I've had worse people in my life. She offered a small smile, already heading toward the door. We all have. Just before stepping out, she paused. And River? He looked up. Ghosts is my favorite Velvet Mask song. She gave him a soft wink, with her thick brown curls framing her face. The door clicked softly shut behind her. He was off work for 6 weeks. Mandatory recovery. Heart surgery at 39. It made headlines in his local music subreddit when someone recognized him from a hospital bed photo. They matched it to a clip of his voice. The Velvet Mask is in the ICU, one fan wrote. No one's confirming it, but you can hear it in the way he breathes. The hospital room was quiet again, save for the soft rhythm of the heart monitor beside his bed and the occasional distant beat from the hallway. The early morning light was gray and hazy, not yet warm. River sat propped up, phone in hand, thumb hovering over a name he hadn't touched in months, Elias Vance. He hesitated. Once that name had felt like salvation. Later it had felt like a prison. Now it felt like something in between. He tapped the call button. 3 rings. River. Elias's voice was smooth, clipped, unshaken. As always, as if no time had passed at all, River let out a slow breath. Hey. A pause. You calling to settle the breach clause or sign the exit papers? No, River said quietly. I'm calling to come back. There was silence on the other end. Not surprise, just calculation. I see, Elias said finally. Are you well enough? I'm getting there, River replied. Physically, yes. Mentally, I don't know. But I need to do this. Not because of the contract, not because of the money. You mean in spite of the money, Elias muttered. Because it's the only thing I have left that still feels like mine. River's voice cracked slightly. Everything else, my name, my past, my body, it's been ripped open. This music, it's all I have that's still mine. Elias didn't respond right away. River could hear faint shuffling in the background, a chair creaking, the hum of an office. You're not naive enough to think anonymity still protects you, Elias said flatly. I know it doesn't, River admitted, but it protects the music. That's what matters now. I don't need a face. I don't want the fame. I just want to create. Elias sighed. You'll still be hunted, and if this turns into another event, it won't, River interrupted, firmer now. I'm not the same person I was. Another pause. I don't want the tour. I don't want the awards. I don't want a team of stylists or handlers or features with names I don't trust. It's just me now. I want to make something honest. Something stripped down. Raw. Silence again. Then if I agree, you'll owe me an album. I'll deliver it, River said, but on my terms. No cameras, no spotlight, just songs. Elias was quiet for a long time. Then came the sound of a pen clicking. I can't sell a ghost forever, River. Then don't sell me, River replied. Sell the sound. Elias exhaled slowly, the closest thing to a concession. Fine, 1 album, anonymous drop. You stay invisible, but if you go dark again, if this turns into another vanishing act, it won't, River said. I'm not running anymore. A beat, welcome back. Elias said, and the call ended. Rivers stared at the screen for a moment, then lowered the phone into his lap. No triumph, no relief, just a quiet certainty. The mask would stay on, but this time he was the one choosing to wear it. River laughed once. It hurt. He didn't answer any messages. Not from work, not from the label, not from the hospital PR rep who wanted to know if he'd be willing to give a statement. He barely left the flat. Except for the music, he recorded on the floor of his bedroom, hunched over his guitar, chest still wrapped in surgical tape. He whispered lyrics like secrets, posted at 2 a.m. under track names like Ethereal and Solaris. Fans did not know it was him, but they felt it, and the comments started again. Who is this? This is real. Ireland wouldn't stop. New number, new email, new threats. Photos of Kate with a man outside her market. Blurry, taken without consent. Probably fake. Probably not. She's moved on. She's finally waking up. River stared at the screen for a long time, then blocked the number and all the others. He didn't respond, didn't react, just wrote a song called Triage, another called Ghostwriter, and one, the hardest of all, called October Gray. The post went live at 3:27 a.m. It wasn't dramatic, no red texts, no caption screaming revenge, just a quiet upload to a niche Velvet Mask fan subreddit. A photo of River, hair tied back messily, hoodie askew, face pale from surgery. He was standing in front of the hollow lantern, Dana's arm loosely around his shoulder. Below it, a short message. This is the Velvet Mask. I have more if this doesn't convince you. Ask him why he hides. Ask what he's ashamed of. The account name was fake, but the venom was familiar. Ireland had done it. She'd finally thrown the match. At first, River didn't know. He found out the same way he found out about everything else, through a whisper, then a comment, then the slow rising tide of notifications on his abandoned fan accounts. But what shocked him was not the exposure. It was the response. This dude, really? Sorry, the mask has cheekbones. This guy looks like a sleep-deprived barista. I'd believe it if it weren't for the freckles. No way. Nice try, but the mask is way hotter. Plot twist, the youngest Cardi is trying to sabotage someone who rejected her. The comments kept coming. Dozens of fans dissected his face, his posture, even his nose. Some compared waveform analysis of River's old live streams to Velvet Mask's vocals, and still insisted it wasn't a match. Someone even started a meme thread. River stared at the screen in stunned silence. The damage was minimal. No one believed it was him. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He stood in the kitchen for a long time, phone in one hand, mug in the other. He looked down at his reflection in the tea. Same crooked nose, same hooded eyes, same freckled, too pale skin, same scar that made one brow hitch just enough to look skeptical. It wasn't pretty enough to be the man in the mask. And in a way, it protected him. But late that night, after another release of a song titled Mouthful of Ash, Rivers stared into the glow of his laptop and muttered, maybe I don't have to hide anymore. He didn't say it to anyone. But he thought, maybe Kate would hear it anyway. Kate. There were mornings when Kate woke up thinking of River. Not the version everyone else argued over, not the ghost on Reddit, or the name behind the mask, the man. The one who looked at her like she was a home he never thought he'd find again. She remembered when she last saw him, Berlin. Her boys asleep in the next room, the sun bleeding gold through the thin curtain, and River sitting barefoot on the edge of the bed, too beautiful and too sad for a moment that small. His dark eyelashes always surprised her. They were thick, almost feminine, brushing softly against the curve of his cheeks when he blinked. They shadowed eyes that were a shade of blue she could actually stare into. When the sun hit his face, freckles bloomed across his nose and cheekbones. She hadn't noticed them the first time they kissed, but now she couldn't unsee them. Tiny constellations she'd missed while staring too hard at his pain. His lips, that uneven curl on the left side of his bottom lip, like he was always on the verge of saying something he didn't trust himself to admit. His nose was long. His chin is soft, just square enough to highlight his good looks. Sometimes he looked too fragile to belong to the body that held him up. But his vulnerability lived in his eyebrows, the way they tilted upward when he looked at her. Just enough to say, please don't leave yet. The first time she hugged him, his whole frame had gone stiff, like touch was a foreign language. Then, slowly, she felt it happen. His body eased into hers, melted like snow under pressure. It broke something open in her, and now she didn't know what to do with all that brokenness. Kate stared at the message on her screen long after it was sent. You're right. I'm moving on. It's better this way. She'd sent it to Ireland, but it wasn't Ireland she meant it for. She knew exactly what would happen. Ireland would take those words and run them straight to River like a poisoned blade, and part of her hated herself for using Ireland to deliver the message, but she didn't have the strength to say it directly. Not again. Not when River's every word still lived under her skin. She didn't sleep that night. The house was too quiet, and her own heart was too loud. She could hear River's voice in her head, not just the trembling apologies from his last messages, but the one voicemail she couldn't stop listening to. His voice cracked and terrified, like he was halfway between this world and whatever came after. Kate, I'm sorry. I think something's wrong. I didn't mean any of this. The pause in his breath had nearly killed her. Please don't hate me. I didn't want to die before I told you. It cut off there, just static. She had dropped her phone, then she had called every hospital in town, one by one, crying, panicking, hands trembling as she gave them his name again and again. River Hayes. He might be there, he might be alone. It took 4 hours to confirm he was admitted. She nearly got in her car, nearly woke the boys and told them they were going to see a friend, but something stopped her. A memory, a flash of him in Berlin that night they shared a bed. The way his hands had trembled when she touched his face. The way he said, "You make me feel like I'm made of glass." She couldn't show up now, not after telling him she didn't believe him. Not after letting Ireland twist the knife. Not when her presence might be the final push he didn't survive. So she didn't go, or she sat on the edge of her bathtub listening to the voicemail again. She whispered, "Please don't die, River. Please don't die thinking I don't love you." She didn't hit send. She never did. The messages kept coming. Kate didn't open them all anymore, but she read enough to know they still came from the same place. River's heart, or what was left of it. Some were long, poetic. Others just a line. "I'm sorry for everything. I miss you more than I know how to survive. I wish I were someone else, someone easier to love." She stared at them late into the night, curled up on the couch, the boys asleep upstairs. Her laptop sat open on the coffee table, paused on a Velvet Mask video. River, but not River. Her River didn't look like that online. Not polished, not magnetic. Her River was pale and scarred and soft around the eyes. Her River curled his bottom lip when he was anxious, and had one too long curl of hair that always fell across his forehead when he spoke too quickly. The world might not believe that man was Velvet Mask, but she knew. She knew by the way his voice cracked on the final word of a verse, the way his lyrics said things he couldn't say out loud, the way grief sat inside his music like it was wearing his bones. Still, knowing didn't make it easier. The truth was, River loved her too much, and that terrified her. She closed her eyes and let herself remember Berlin. The morning light had poured through the curtains like warm milk. River had been asleep, his arms slung over her waist, his face relaxed in a way she'd never seen before, like he'd forgotten to brace himself. She traced her thumb over the line of freckles across his nose. They were faint. She hadn't noticed them until the sun brought them out. His breathing had hitched when she touched him, and his eyes had fluttered open. "What are you doing?" he murmured. "Counting stars," she whispered. He smiled at the theme, uneven, lopsided, the left corner of his mouth curling just slightly higher than the right. That smile haunted her. It was rare, and it was real, and she hadn't seen it since. Kate wrapped her cardigan tighter around her shoulders now, the present too cold, too sharp. She wasn't sure she could hold someone like River, not because she didn't love him. She did. God, she did. But because loving him meant opening herself to everything inside him, the trauma, the rage, the guilt, the relentless spiral of self-doubt. His heart wasn't just broken. It was bleeding, always. And some nights she felt like she was drowning in his hemorrhage. She couldn't be his savior. She wasn't even sure who she was. Since the divorce, she'd been trying to find her footing, to find something solid that belonged to her. Not to motherhood, not to exes, not even to River. And he'd arrived like a tidal wave, sweeping her into the past and demanding a future she wasn't sure she had the strength to give. Still, she looked at his last message. "If I have to disappear for good, I need you to know you are the only part of this life that made sense." She cried quietly and didn't respond. Kate sat on her porch as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, turning the sky the same strange lavender as River's eyes used to look when the light caught them right. She hadn't planned to message anyone. But her fingers had moved alone. Names she hadn't seen in years started lighting up on her phone, friends from her and River's childhood, classmates, people from the years before everything got messy. She started with Sarah, the one who used to joke that River would marry his guitar before he married a girl. "Hey, I know this is random, but do you remember much about River? How was he then?" Sarah replied an hour later. Honestly, I don't remember him talking much, just sort of quietly intense, always writing something in that notebook. Kate smiled at that notebook. Always black, always fraying, always full of half-sketched lyrics and doodles of eyes he'd drawn while pretending to take notes. Then she reached out to Ben, a guy who'd once shared a class project with River the same year they were 16. He was smart, really smart, but withdrawn. People picked on him sometimes. I remember him getting punched once for correcting someone's grammar. Ben ended the message with, "Didn't he disappear after high school? I always thought he'd go off and do something important, like something intense. I'm glad he's alive." Alive. What a low bar. She kept reading. Some said kind things, some didn't remember much. One suggested River was probably off somewhere doing drugs or music or both. None of them knew him, not the way she did, not the way she should have. She clutched her phone to her chest. Then, with her breath held and fingers numb, she pressed the name that mattered most. Adam. Hello? Adam's voice was warm but wary, like he wasn't sure why she was calling, but wasn't surprised either. Hi, Kate breathed. It's Kate. A pause. Then I figured, I hope it's not a bad time. It's not. I was actually hoping you'd call eventually. She blinked. You were? Adam let out a slow sigh. Yeah. I mean, with everything going on with him, I figured you might need to talk to someone who sees both sides. There was silence between them for a moment. Then Kate asked the question that had been clawing at her ribs for weeks. Did he ever stop loving me? No, Adam said simply. Not even for a second. She felt tears pool in her eyes. I don't know what to do with that, she whispered. I pushed him away. I told him he made everything harder, that he's always a victim. I said horrible things. I know, Adam said gently. So does he. I was scared, Kate confessed. Scared of how much he felt. Scared I'd never be enough. Scared I'd never stop having to pull him out of the fire. You don't have to explain it to me, Kate, Adam said, his voice softer now. But maybe you should ask yourself why it was easier to push him away than to say I'm sorry. She closed her eyes. The tears spilled over. I've loved him since we were kids, she admitted. And I don't think I even knew how much until I heard that voicemail. But instead of going to him, I stayed away. Because love isn't easy, Adam replied, and neither is grief or guilt. You think River's the only one who's been drowning? He thinks he ruins everything he touches. And you, Adam paused. You think you can only love someone who doesn't need you. Kate sat with that. It wasn't an accusation, just a mirror. Adam continued, quieter. He's not perfect, Kate. He's messy. He shuts down when he's scared. He spirals when he's in pain. But he loves with his whole goddamn soul. And I think he would have walked through fire for you if you asked. Kate whispered, I know. Then the question isn't whether he loves you. It's whether you're ready to accept love that deep without trying to fix it or perverse it. She didn't have an answer, not yet. But she didn't hang up either. Mom, Liam asked, his spoon clinking against a near-empty bowl of cereal. Do you think River would like the fox den we found in the woods? Kate blinked. What? The one Finn saw behind the old shed, Liam said patiently. We're building a fence around it with sticks. We were going to show River, remember? Finn, sitting cross-legged on the floor, added. He said he'd help us plant milkweed too, for the butterflies. Kate swallowed hard. She looked at their hopeful little faces, one still with syrup on his cheek, the other gripping a crayon like it was a sword. They were waiting for her to confirm a truth that no longer existed. She forced a smile. I think he'd love it. They didn't ask why he hadn't been, not yet. They just folded him into the rhythm of their lives, like he might show up next week with a new packet of seeds and a guitar slung over his back. River had become a ghost in their house, not spoken of like the dead, but like something too magical to let go. Later that night, when the boys were finally asleep and the house smelled like chamomile and something faintly burnt, Kate sat curled up on the couch with her phone. She had meant to respond to work emails. Instead, she opened the folder labeled to River. Her thumb hovered over one message dated 3 weeks ago. The boys miss you. I do too. But I can't say that out loud right now. Another, from last week, I'm sorry. You scared me. But that voicemail, you broke me, River, and I still didn't come. She locked the phone before she could spiral. Instead, she poured herself a glass of red wine and tried to forget how quiet everything felt without him in it.